As I said last time, we would go through the rules today and explain you a bit why they're here and what you can expect of them. Because whether you want it or not, you have to read through and agree to them before you can play or before you can even make a character. So we're not gonna read through them as much as we're gonna try and explain what's behind them and maybe show off a few things like what a warning can look like and similar things. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to share, don't forget to like, don't forget to follow on Twitter. All links as well as a complete time scheme of this video will be in the video description and in the pinned comment that you'll find below. So enough said, let's go through the rules and shed some light on them. Before we actually go through the whole set of rules, there's a few things we need to point out relating to warnings and punishments. These things will be valid throughout the whole rules outline, and so that's why we're gonna go through them first. Before we go through the rules, we need to point out a few basic things, like for example, what is a punishment, what is a warning, and then we can actually go through and see what can trigger them. So first we have warnings. These are like general messages, like a player, you need to be careful because we're aware that you're breaking one or several of the rules, and these will have levels between 1 and 5. 1 being the lowest urgent, more likely to be a general pointer like keep in mind that you're using out of character chat while you should be using the radio or some such if it's really bothersome. Like if it happens once, the admins probably won't react to it, but if it is keeping on happening constantly, then you might get a level 1 warning. While a level 5 warning is usually reserved for people that start really either insulting, sending messages that really should not be sent, or spamming or some such. And once you receive a level 5 warning, it's safe to assume that the next time you break a rule or something, you'll get something more.
Heavy offense. You follow the instructions given, or results will get worse.
This something more can go from restrictions to jail, or if you're like fishing for those, it will be just a ban. We're not gonna humor people that try to fish for jail. We're just gonna flat out ban them then, in that case. So, restrictions. Restrictions are actually meant to limit your character from doing certain things. For example, if admins discover you have been busy spamming the out of character chat, they can quickly and easily prevent you from using the out of character chat. Or for example, if the admins get several reports of you sending a PM over and over to the same people, they can actually quickly intervene and prevent you from sending PMs. This is not limited to sending messages. This can also go for preventing you from using a certain item, preventing you from traveling to any map, preventing you from looking at people, and lots more. Restrictions can be either permanent or they can be for a few days, depending on what it is you did wrong. The admin in question will decide the duration of the restriction time. Jail is a separate map and is a map where you cannot die, so even if you try to kill yourself, it doesn't work. And also it prevents you from role-playing, hunting, or anything else of the matter. Now, there's also a small jail add-on, if you will, because if we discover that people with large inventories are actively trying to get jailed even or look forward to jail, there are isolation cells. What those do is nothing much. They just make sure you don't have any resources to collect, and they make sure that you have to rely on your own inventory to survive in jail. These isolation cells are usually only reserved for people that, for instance, have been caught account sharing, more on that later, or some such. And so then we know they have an inventory, and so they just have to survive. And then last but not least, if nothing works, so if there is no working way for restrictions to keep you in check, or if jail doesn't work either, or if you're actually fishing for jail, you just get banned. Bans can be either permanent or temporary. We usually use permanent bans for now. This will probably change. So keep your eyes open for that. But for now, permanent bans are the most often used, just because there's no good system for temporary bans for the moment. But as soon as that's in place, bans can either be temporary, so for example for 2 weeks or 3, or can be permanent. Now, permanent bans will also delete your entire character, including inventory, paid status, and so forth, so that you really cannot come back from that. Now, if you believe an admin has taken an action in error, you can always contact another admin and try talking with them. And if that doesn't solve anything, you can always go to Sam, the developer. Now, if you talk to an admin and you feel your punishment was made in error, that doesn't mean that it will be instantly undone. This means that all the admins will have a sit down and will have a conversation on why certain things took place, and they will try to resolve it and undo if there is something to be undone, or stick with it if the global opinion, the general opinion from the whole team is that the punishment was not made in error. Now, those are the admin punishments and so forth. So now that that's out of the way, let's go to character names. If any character name is unacceptable for one of the reasons I will outline below, you will either be asked to delete the character or to change the name. Names cannot start with PK or newbie or supernatural and such, because those are actually in-game statuses. Someone with PK on will have PK show up in front of their name, and so that's why you cannot use those 2 letters at the beginning of your name. You can actually use them at the end of your name, but not in the beginning. Characters to insult people will be considered the same as using out of character chats to insult people, and thus will get you warned, jailed, banned, or some such. Names that impersonate admins, these are absolutely not allowed, because then people might think you're an admin while you're actually not, or might think you're the developer while you're not. These will 99% of the time have a permanent ban as a consequence, because you know what you're doing. Now, there's also accidental impersonation, because some admins use their real name. So if that happens, then we will try to work something out, just because no one should be denied the opportunity to use their real name in game. That's all fine. So if that happens, then don't worry, you'll not get banned for that. We'll just try to figure something out. Also, accidental impersonation can be some players write the letter F with PH and some with the regular letter F. So if these things pop up, then the admins usually try to solve it by asking them to change the name or something similar. Crash words or other sentences or phrases that will make your screen reader do weird things. These are just not allowed and will result in a permanent ban. No questions asked or no defense is allowed either. Now, chatting. This is always a fun subject because people sometimes think some things are allowed while they're in fact not, and sometimes people think they're not spamming but they are. So we'll go through a few things that are not allowed in the chat, and these count for all of them. For example, spamming, sending multiple times the letter A over a span of several minutes is not allowed. Sending a text with like multiple letters, meaning multiple A's, for example, message with 15 A's over and over is not allowed because it's repeating, so that's a basic thing. Like if it's repetitive, like A, or message all the time, then that's usually considered spamming. Also, using trust or untrust trust and untrust to annoy people, that's also spamming. Sending a PM over and over, that's also spamming. Sending the same PM to multiple people several times is also spamming. And the list can go on for a while, so we'll leave it at that. Insults. This is mainly clear, but there's also a bit of personal feeling involved in this. Some people can see the F word as being insultive, while others might not. But things like the F word with a family member in front of it, those are insultive. Those are real insults, and those are not allowed on the out of character chat. We prefer also not the in character chat, but since that's roleplay, it's a bit of a tricky situation. But if you can avoid spewing such insults, then we'd rather you do so. Language channels on out of character chat. These are meant for the specific language, not for a country, but for the language. So using Spanish on the English out of character chat is not allowed. Using French on the German channel is not allowed, and so forth and so forth. And this will quickly result in a warning or a restriction if it's really not stopped. Contents. Certain things cannot be sent in messages, and these include but are not limited to crash words, or other phrases or sentences that can have a negative influence on your screen reader. Those will just result in a ban anyway, so just don't do it. Links, cracks, and other some such are not allowed. We are not tolerating any distributions of cracked software, simply because this also has a negative influence on the domain name and such, and also because, well, it's an ethical problem. Distributing something on a game that is like stolen or you don't have to pay for while you actually have to pay for it, it's not a good thing, so we're usually not allowing this to happen. Links to adult material or content that is related to adult material is also not allowed, because this game is for people of all ages. This means that people that are 12-year-old or some such should not be faced with these kind of things, so we don't allow them to be posted. vulgar text, racist text, text that have a negative tone towards religion, race, and other ethnical things and such are not allowed. And then there are a few chat-specific things. To recap, radio and TTS and such are for role-playing. PMs and group chats are a bit of both role-playing and out of character. So that's a bit flexible. Now on to PK or player killing. If you turn on PK, you do so knowingly. It's not that you can do it accidentally, you have to do it knowingly. And this also means that you agree to not log off when you see someone else with a PK status nearby, just to avoid dying. If you turn on PK or player killing, it is to be killed or to kill, not to troll people to turn their PK on and then log off. That's not how this works. If you're caught logging off with PK, then you will get a warning, or if it keeps on happening, other things might follow. Now, my favorite subject, movement and in-game actions. The only input allowed in the game is human-produced input. This means your fingers pressing the keys on your keyboard. Under no circumstances is it allowed to use any kind of script, be that auto ID, auto id, any hotkey presser, any other such thing, cheat engines, game trainers, even NVDA add-ons, or specially made programs like Survive the Wild Utils or Survive the Wild Navigator. Now, to explain this a bit more in depth, because some of those tools may sound familiar and you might not even be aware those are cheating tools, but some of these tools like STW Utils or Survive the Wild Utils actually don't simulate human key presses. They make a software key press, so that's not you pressing the key, that's a software program doing it. The same goes for Survive the Wild Navigator, because you cannot press any key on your keyboard to get coordinates of other players or even what direction they are facing and such. So that kind of utilities is not allowed. Cheat engine, well, I don't think I have to tell you why that's not allowed. Modifying in-game values is also not pressing a key on the keyboard to make your character do something, so that's a definite no-go. And keep in mind that this list is not exclusive, so there may be coming new things along the road that we as admin team decide is not healthy for the game, or like people getting inventive and such. So if you're caught using one of those, it probably will result in you getting banned or like have an inventory adjustment or some such, just in order to make it more fair for everyone else. Because the main issue with software key presses, because that's actually in the end what it's all boiling down to, software key presses don't get tired. So that's not fair towards people that don't use a software thing to press their keys on the keyboard. So yeah, that's a real unbalanced thing. Also, it's not only in Survive the Wild that these things are not allowed, it's probably basically everywhere. So no key pressers, no cheat engines, no specially designed tools, nothing. If you're caught, you're done. It's as simple as that. Character statuses, yes, you can apply a personal status to your character, like a sort of description or like personal message as we see on Skype or the early days in MSN and such. here the same rules applies as to the out of character chat and such. No insults, no racist things, no pornography, no nothing. Game bugs, loopholes and exploits. If you discover a loophole, a bug or an exploit, for example, if you discover that if you kill a bear, your health resets to 5,000 instead of 1,000, you immediately stop doing this and you immediately send an admin tell. If you're not sure if something is a bug, then ask other players if that's normal. If it's not normal, then you stop. Failing to stop, and admins will know when you failed to stop because they can always observe you without you even knowing, will result in a warning or jail or such. Account security and account sharing. You and only you are responsible for your account, and only you should be playing with it. If you give your password to other players, and that's why it's not allowed anymore, the other players could log in and delete your stuff and such, and this for the admins is such a headache that it's simply no longer allowed to share accounts between other people. Also because then everyone could solve quests by sharing accounts, and that's not really a good idea. So sharing accounts is a definite no. This means that once you create an account to play, it's yours and yours alone. This doesn't mean that you cannot use multiple computers, because that's fine. And you can also have multiple characters, that's also fine. But they belong to you as a physical person and only you. If you see fit to break the sharing rule and you're caught, or you lose stuff because you gave your password to someone else, that's on you. No admin intervention will happen unless it's proven that somehow you got hacked, or that some other game owners decide to be a horrible nuisance and use the game info you left there to try to access your accounts and such. If that happens and it can be proven that it happens, then the admins will try to solve it. If not, if it's discovered that you shared your password and someone made good use of that, between quotation marks, because like stealing things from people is not a good use, but you get the thing, then admins will not be able to do anything, and you can only blame yourself for that. Now a few more additions. Messages sent with the intent to harass people, or to be creepy, or to stalk people, or some such, will also not be allowed. And keep it also in mind that this is not a definite list of rules. There will be still a few that will be added, and so once the update comes out, make sure to read them all carefully, because once you click I agree, all the admins will assume that you have read through the whole set of rules and agreed to all of them. So an excuse like, but I didn't know this was a thing, doesn't count. Okay, on this kind of a stronger note, let's end this video. Make sure to subscribe, to like, to share, to follow on Twitter. Every link will be in the description, as well as a sort of time overview so you can jump between the several sections. And I will see you guys next week.